Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Our Divad Torah today, the words of Torah, should be for the Fu'ah Shalema, Mrs. Dadado's mother-in-law, the rabbi's mom, Etel Bat Haya Sipa, should have a continued health. Also, Miriam Bat Yafa and Ezra ben Miriam. And Sarah, Rachel Bat Sarah, and Batya Bat Sarah, Fu'ah Shalema. Along with all the other people in Klal Yisrael that need a fu'ah, everyone should feel better and be back. Anna, Etel, Bat, Nehama, Ruth, Yantel, Shavua Shelma. Parashat Toledot, good morning. Parashat Toledot. Okay, lots of questions on this parasha. What a confusing parasha. This is very difficult, honestly, to understand, with Yaakov and Esav and tricking. So what I always like to do is make sure everyone understands no matter what level you're on. So we'll go on a very basic level, like 30 seconds through the parasha, and then we'll try to do it again and give some understanding and maybe answer some questions that I'm sure everyone has. So we have Yitzhak, Abraham. We had Abraham and Sarah married. They had two kids, Ishmael, Yitzhak. Ishmael becomes the father of the Muslims and others, and Yitzhak takes the line of, let's call it Judaism, although there was no such thing as Judaism at that time. There's the Jewish family. Yitzhak takes the line down and continues it down. Yitzhak went to the Akedah. Hashem told Abraham, go slaughter your son Yitzhak at the altar. It was one of the biggest tests of his life. Akedat Yitzhak. He goes to slaughter Yitzhak. He's about to slaughter his son, which was against everything he stood for, because we don't believe in killing in Judaism. But he passed the test and he was going to do it. And then Hashem says an angel to say, stop, don't do it. It was just a test. I don't actually want you to kill your son. Great. After that, the parasha says, not this week, before, it says, right after the Akedah, Abraham heard the news. Oh, Mabruk, Mazal Tov. There's a lot of kids that were born. His sister-in-law had a bunch of children. And one of the children was Betuel. Betuel would be the father of Rivka, who would end up being his son's wife. Right? Haya Sarah, last week's parasha, Haya Sarah, Abraham sends his servant, his wife died, Sarah. He sends his servant Eliezer down to find a mate for his son Yitzhak. And he ends up at Betuel's house. And Rivka was a wonderful girl, and she showed kindness. And Rivka became the wife of Yitzhak. So he brought Rivka with him to Yitzhak, not the other way around. Great. Now our parasha comes and says Yitzhak and Rivka are married, and now they want children, and they also have a hard time having children. So they're praying for children. Eventually, Hashem listens, and He gives them children after waiting a very long time. And He makes Rivka pregnant. As we all know, the kids are going nuts in the stomach. It was a very difficult pregnancy for Rivka. And she said, I can't handle this. What's going on here? So she went to see, she went to ask Hashem what's going on. Hashem is the prophet, probably. Different opinions. The prophet says, don't worry about it. There's actually two nations in your stomach. So I'm going to ease your mind now. There's two nations in your stomach. They're going to be two powerhouses. They're going to separate. So you have two in you now. That the reason why you have such a crazy pregnancy is because you have a couple of really big, like, heads of families in your stomach. They're going to go out, and then they're going to separate. Okay, fine. They have the kids. The first one comes out, Esav, hairy, right? Hairy, red, and they called him Esav. And the second comes out, Yaakov. Yaakov is holding onto the heel of his brother. He's the second twin to come out. He's grabbing onto the heel and said, oh, look, he's holding the heel of his brother. Let's call him Yaakov. Fast forward 15 years. 15 years, Avraham Avinu dies. The grandpa dies. It's noteworthy to note. The Hidah says we had a 15-year period in history of an overlap with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And the Hidah says for 15 years, they learned together for 15 hours a day. 15 times 15. Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And this was something that the world needed, because there are something called midot, characteristics. There are chief characteristics in humanity. So there's hesed, kindness, is deen. Deen is judgment, also known as givurah, limits, right? So picture someone who's kind, who's so kind they just give everything away to all the people. Here, take it, take it, take it. That's a guy that's hesed. You have a person that's deen, givurah, judgment, boundaries, who says, no, sorry, I need this, you can't have it. I draw lines. Either of those can be bad if you do it to the extreme. And then the third one is the blend, which is called tiferet. Tiferet is Yaakov. He's the blend. I know when to turn on the kindness. I know when to turn on the limits. You got to know how to navigate yourself in this world. That's also known as rahamim, mercy. Mercy is channeling your kindness and your limits to blend them into only being kind when it makes sense to be kind. Right? You don't want to give a homeless guy a pack of cigarettes so he can kill himself 5 minutes earlier. That's not kind, right? So you have to have mercy and tiferet. Tiferet means splendor and glory. Tiferet is the blend between Hesed and Rahamim. Yaakov was the blend between his father and his grandpa. For 15 years, they all sat together and they created this blend that they gave to the grandchild, Yaakov, which we can talk about as the Parashiyot go on, it looks like it was handed over to Yosef. And the blend of Tiferet is how you achieve success in this world. It's a rough world. You got to know when to be nice. You got to know when to be kind, to draw limits. 15 years old, Abraham dies. We have the famous story of the ades soup, right? The Syrian halabi, we eat ades soup also, right? Lentil soup. Abraham died, so Yitzhak is sitting for his father, Shiva. So Yaakov makes some ades soup, some lentil soup. There's red lentils and there's green lentils, right? This is the red lentil soup, right? The red lentil soup. So he makes the red lentil soup and comes in Esav from the field because there were different characteristics, right? Esav was the hunter-gatherer field guy, the manly man. And Yaakov was in the Yoshev Alim. He liked to sit home, sit in the tents of Torah, they say. He comes in and he says, oh, what is that? I'm tired. What is that? I want some of that red stuff. Pour for me, hala'itani is a word usually used for animals, not for people. Pour for me some the red stuff. I don't want to say the name of the thing, just the color is what I'm after. Passion. He says, I'll sell you your birthright, the firstborn right, for the soup. And that is the famous story of how Yaakov became the firstborn. He said, here, take the firstborn. I don't care about being firstborn. I'm going to die. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That's from our books. It's from Isaiah, I believe, one of the prophets. So Esav says, I don't care about the firstborn rights. Take it. He sold it, and then they go on their way. And then later in the Parashah, we have the famous story of Yitzhak wanted to bless his son Esav. Yitzhak loved his son Esav. He wanted to bless him. And then we have the story of Yaakov stealing or tricking for the blessings. His mother said, I want you to have those blessings, so you got to make believe you're him. He has these beautiful garments. These beautiful garments that he always kept in the house. Commentaries say he kept these garments just to serve his father. He used to put a jacket on just to serve his father. Put his jacket on, make believe you're him. Put some fur on you because he's hairy and you're not. Put some fur, make believe you're him. He went in there, he stole his blessing. Esav heard, Esav freaked out. I'll do the 10-second version. Esav freaks out, Esav cries. Yitzhak freaks out. What in the world has happened? The plan of the mom worked, of course, and then Esav gets mad, says, I'm going to kill this guy. And Rivka says, it's time to skip town and go out, go take shelter in my family's house. This is our Parashah in 30 seconds. Now, how old was Rivka? Let's get this one out of the way. How old was Rivka? So most people will tell you 3 years old. That's what they say, if Rivka was 3 years old. The Gemara actually says she was 12 years old. And Tosafot on that Gemara says she was 14 years old. Why do they say she was 3 years old? Is there a reason behind this, or is just a number they picked? So actually, there's a reason behind it. What's the reason? All right, first thing you have to understand is age in those days were a lot different than our days. They were much more mature than we are. Physically, emotionally, the whole 9 yards, they were much more mature than us. So they can handle a lot more at a young age than we can handle even at an older age. Now we have 35-year-old babies. They could barely do anything. They don't get a job now until, what's the age now you get a job? What's the age you start working? 30 you start working these days?
26.
Oh my goodness gracious, 26. 26, yeah, medical benefits at the 20. That's all you need to know. When they extend that medical benefits to 30, we're in for it. Okay, so 3 years old, why? Because Remember, Yitzhak went to be slaughtered on the mountain for Akedat Yitzhak. Yitzhak, so there's a couple of dots you have to connect. How do we know the ages here? Because they're written right next to each other. Akedat Yitzhak, what happens right after Akedat Yitzhak? After the angel says, don't slaughter him. The very next thing it says is, Vahi Yaharei Adivim Ha'eleh, he heard the news about his new nieces and nephews being born. Okay, that happened right after that. What happens right after that? Sarah dies. So the rabbis say, oh, it all happened at the same time. That's why they're written together. Well, we know Sarah died at 127 years old. And we know she was 90 when she had Yitzhak. That means Yitzhak was 37. So when he was on the mountain, he was 37 years old to be slaughtered. It calls him a Na'ad, which you asked me, Helen, right? He calls him a Na'ad, right? But he was 37 years old according to this. Okay? And if that means he heard the news, why does it say he heard the news about the cousins being born right away? Must be they really were born. Right after the Akedah, they were born. Must be she was born right after the Akedah. Why does it say right after the Akedah? You know, we have the Akedah, it's Parashat Vayera. We also read this on Rosh Hashanah. You have this, it's one of the greatest stories we have. It's drama. What's going to happen? Is he going to slaughter him? All of a sudden at the end, the Parashat doesn't just end. Parashat goes, and after this he heard about a bunch of nephews being born, and starts naming all the nephews. What do you got to do this now? Because they were born, she was born that day. That's what the rabbis say. That's why they tell us right afterwards. Rivka was born the second after the Akedah. Now, we know that Yitzhak was 40 when he got married. Well, if he was 37 at the Akedah, there was a 3-year interim. And if she was just born at the Akedah, she must have been 3. That's where the math comes in, that she was 3 years old. But I want to tell you another thing according to this Peshat. If you don't like the fact that she was born, that she was 3 when she got married, you don't have to agree with that. I told you, Tosafot says she was 14 years old. Midrashim can conflict with each other. It's okay. You can pick a different one, right? But according to the ones who said she was 3 years old, I'll tell you what the Orach Hayim HaKadosh says. Orach Hayim says, why? Why make her born the second Akedah happen? What is this all about? And he says, Yitzhak, Avraham, I said, was Hesed. Avraham embodied kindness. He was so generous. Yishmael, he didn't want to throw him out of the house. He loved Yishmael. I wish I can have Yishmael stay with me. Avraham loved all his children. Midrash says even after he had to kick Ishmael out of the house because his wife told him to, he visited Ishmael once a year. Once a year he visited Ishmael's house and he knocked on his door to visit his son Ishmael. He loved his son Ishmael. Abraham was Hesed. He was the most loving person you can imagine. He didn't have a mean bone in him. Yitzhak was Sarah was Gevurah. His wife was strong. You know, sometimes opposites attract. His wife was strong. She knew limits. Gevurah, Din. He's got to go. Ishmael has got to go out. He's kicked out of the yeshiva, right? She knew where to draw lines. That's also could be a very good thing. You can excel in all these different traits. Everyone's born differently. By the way, as a side thing, don't try to change who you are. If you're a Hesed person, you're a Hesed person. Sometimes you get in trouble when you're a Dean person. You want to start being Mr. Hesed, or you're a Chesed person. I want to start being Mrs. Dean. Like a Kollel lady all day long. It's not who you are. You got to be who you are. Hashem made every person different. We need everyone. Sarah was Din and Gevurah. Now they have a baby, Yitzhak. Which DNA did he inherit? His father's DNA or his mother's DNA? His mother's DNA. Yitzhak was also Din, Gevurah. There's almost no ink in the Torah about Yitzhak. Abraham, we have tons of stories. Yaakov, tons of stories. Yitzhak, half of a Perashah maybe. This was his Perashah to shine, and he's probably not even the star of his own Perashah. Yaakov is probably the star of this Perashah. There's almost no stories about him. He was so quiet. There's nothing. We don't know much about him. We really don't. It only shows us like one time that Hashem spoke to him even. Yitzhak was Din. He was closed. He was Gevurah. He inherited this from his mom. But the Orach Hayim HaKadosh, now we'll get a little Kabbalistic here. So if it's not your cup of tea, it'll be over soon. But for those who like it, you'll like it. The Orach Hayim HaKadosh says, in the name of a Midrash, Sarah, she birthed Yitzhak, so much of her, with her characteristics, she actually birthed Yitzhak a female neshama. a female soul. A soul can be connected to the female traits above or the male traits above. Like you see, people can be very feminine or masculine. It doesn't matter really what gender, right? Yitzhak had a female, his neshama was in Kabbalistic terms here. It was sourced in the female, in the nukba, it's called in the Kabbalah. And therefore, he didn't have a mate yet. He didn't have a bazra. He didn't have a zivug. He had a female neshama. When he went up, and Orahim says, who was it? Hava. Hava came back into Yitzhak's body. Eve. Now, I know some people are anti-Gilgul. People come up to me in the shul and said, I don't do Gilgulim, which is fine. If you don't do Gilgulim, that's fine. You don't have to like Gilgulim, If a kid doesn't, I don't like blood. So when I get a cut, I close my eyes so I don't see the blood. Does that mean the blood's not there? No, the blood's there. I just don't like it. You can close your eyes to it. It's there. It's mainstream. Ben Ish Hai, Hida, all the great rabbis, they talk about Gilgulim, which is fine. You don't have to do it all day long. If it's not your taste, it's not your taste. But to say it doesn't exist is a little childish, in my opinion. So it's not your thing. Okay. The Hidas, the Orahim says, Hava came back into Yitzhak's body. When he went up to the Akedah, it was the tikkun for Hava. And when he was about to be slaughtered, and the angel said, stop, suddenly out of nowhere they saw a ram stuck in the bush. The horns were stuck in the bush. What does that mean, stuck in the bush? It means ready for the taking. You don't have to chase it. Just take it. It's stuck. Can't help it. It's already trapped for you. It's prepared for you. So it's a little crazy. It says the soul of Hava went into the ram, and the ram got slaughtered. That was to finish her tikkun. And Yitzhak said, now you have a new soul. And at the Akedah, he got a male soul. At the Akedah, his soul was traded in Shamayim. He did the tikkun for Hava, and now he starts all over. And that's why his zivug is created right after the Akedah. Now that you have your male soul, now I'll let your female counterpart be born. This is what the Orah Hayim says. Interesting stuff, little out there. Interesting stuff. And that's why Rivka had to be 3 years old, because Yitzhak had to finish his first job in his life, which is go to the Akedah, do the tikkun for Hava, and now it's the second chapter of your life where you're taking the male soul. And this is also why some people say he had trouble having children, because he wasn't born with a full male soul. Okay, deep stuff, but that's why they say she was 3 years old. It gives a little insight into the Gilgulim, Kabbalah for the day. But we'll move on to more normal stuff now. By the way, this goes to show you, the Gemara says, what does Hashem do all day long? And the Gemara says Hashem is mizaveg zivugim. He's making bazra, as we call it in Syrian Arabic. He's making zivugim, shiduchim. He's matchmaking all day long. Why is he matchmaking all day long? Doesn't it announce who your mate is when you're born? Because I think we said this last week. You could have zivug rishon, zivug sheni. You can have so many mates in your life. You can have somebody you're supposed to marry, and based on the way you're acting or based on the way your mate is acting, it's changed. It's a whole spider web. And now Hashem says, okay, your person no longer is a match for you. We've got to find you a new one. This is your bashert. Now that's that person's bashert, and that person's bashert has to go to this person. It's a whole spider web. Hashem is constantly changing your soulmate based on how you act. If you don't act the part, if your soulmate's acting the part, and you're not acting the part, sorry, you lost her. She's going to somebody else. And this is what Hashem does all day long. So there's not only one zivug for someone. So if anyone is looking for a zivug, anyone knows anyone in Shiluchim, is some of the questions some people that are young always ask is, what if I already met my soul? How many people have asked me, what if I already met my soulmate and I missed the boat? I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. You're not going to be single for the rest of your life. You know how many soulmates you have? Hashem is doing it all day long. He's giving you new ones. The new one is right down the block. You keep trying. You don't give up. Okay. By the way, if you look at when the Malach told Sarah, we're going back to Parashat Vayera, you're going to have a baby. You're going to have baby Yitzhak. He says, Shov ashuv elecha ka'et haya. Shov ashuv elecha ka'et haya. I'm going to come back to you. You're going to have a baby. Why does it say two words? Shov, again, I'll come back. Ashuv, will come back again. Rahim says, because there are two neshamot. Shov, the first neshama, and then Ashuv, another neshama. This baby's going to have two neshamot. Hava, and then the other one. Okay. Now, the big question of the day, Florence asked me, which is obviously a big question, is Sarah, Rivka is struggling with this pregnancy. Her stomach is going haywire. It's going crazy in there. Something's going on in here. It doesn't feel right. So I got to go ask what's going on. So the tradition is she went to Shem. She didn't go to Abraham, who was alive, right? 15 years they overlap. She went to Shem. Okay. What does he answer her to solve her problem? There's two nations in your belly. And they're going to be separate. Okay, that's my answer. So I'm good to go now. Like, does that make me feel any better? If anything, I should feel worse. Like, my stomach is going crazy. It feels like I have this baby is schizophrenic. One day this, one day that. We have to look at it on a mature level. Like I always say, you know, when we're kids, we say, when she passed by the idol house, the baby wanted to jump out. When she passed by the shul, the baby wanted to jump out. Let's translate that into like older terms, right? She felt something when she passed by. She said, I feel a connection to this from the inside of me. And when she passed by that, I feel a connection. How could I feel both connections inside of me? So the answer was, don't worry. There's going to be two nations in there, and they're going to be complete opposites and fight basically their whole lives. But it's going to be good. Don't worry. Oh, I feel great. That's great. That's just the answer I was looking for. Why is it a consolation? So that's what I want to address. So keep that in mind. Rashi says on this, Rashi says, you know who the two nations are? There are two nations in you. Who are the two nations? Right? Famous Rashi. What does Rashi say? Anybody? Rashi? No, Rashi gives us two names of people. Rashi says not only are there two nations, the Shem was telling her there's actually two people in there. They are going to come from these people. Two people. It's the title of this class. If you look at the live. Rebbe and Anotninus. Rashi says he told her there's two people coming from here. Who are these two people? Rebbe. Who's Rebbe? Rebbe. We had Rebbe before Lubavitch had Rebbe, right? Rebbe is Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. Rebbe Yehuda Nasi is known as Rebbe. Rebbe. And Anotninus. They're going to come from you. Okay, thank you. So you're telling me that Shem, many years before these two guys were born, Shem is saying, don't worry, it's going to be Rebbe and Anotninus. So Rebbe was Jewish, Anotninus was not Jewish, he was Roman, and they were friends, they got along. Thank you for telling me that throughout our history of fighting like cats and dogs, huh?
They lived in the same
Yes, they did. We'll talk about them. But so the constellation is what exactly? They're going to fight, these two babies are going to have tons of kids that fight with each other and torture each other all their lives. And then there's going to be one of them that's friends with another one of them. That's my consolation. Why can't you give me other examples? Who else comes from Yaakov? Moshe Rabbeinu. Rebbe. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to come from him. David HaMelech. Rebbe. No, Rebbe. Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. What's so special about Rebbe Yehuda Nasi? He's chosen that, don't worry, Rebbe Yehuda Nasi is going to come from there. It could have said Og, Anotninus. It could have said Og. Could have said tons of other people. How many converts we have? It's interesting to think about. Most of the converts we have come from Esav, not from Ishmael. One time I was curious. I was trying to do research on how many converts we get from the nation of from Islam. It's like, and so I started researching it, and I went on YouTube, and literally in the Israeli news they had a documentary about one guy who converted from Islam to Judaism. That was like a news story. One guy was like made the news because one Muslim converted. It doesn't really happen so often, right? Look at they also killed the Christians. Also, we had crusades. The Christians also tortured us. But we have tons of converts. Many of our great rabbis, great people, come from converts from Esav. Rabbi Meir was from Esav. Rabbi Akiva came from converts, right? Ruth didn't come from him from Esav. But we had who else? Rabbi Meir, Unkilos, yeah, right? So what? What'd you say? Oh, Rabbi Meir, Balanes, Ken, Rabbi Meir, but not. Okay, so I want to address this. What was the consolation? Why did that make her feel better about what's going on in her stomach? Why did that help her? Before we do, we have to set we have to know a few things basic things about this parasha, that unfortunately I think, like I always say, I'm a broken record. We think about like we're 7 years old and we don't advance in our thinking. And I think there's some points we have to reassess and sort of relearn on an adult level. And most of this comes from a rabbi that I always quote, Rabbi Victor Miller. He says as follows. First of all, this. Esav was born. What does it say about Esav? Kulo ke'aderet se'al. He was very hairy. Okay. What's the second grade version of the story? He was basically beast. We have Beauty and the Beast. He was the beast. He was a hairy beast. No, that's not what happened. Esav was hairy. That was actually a good thing. It was a good thing to be hairy. Why was that a good thing to be hairy? Why does the Torah tell us he was hairy? Well, we have to know he was hairy because we need that information for later on in the story. How did Yaakov trick his father? He acted like him. He put on the hairy goat skin. So if we didn't know he was hairy, it really wouldn't fit the story. So we need to know he was hairy for that reason. You with me so far? No? You said no and then yes. Why do we need to know Esav was hairy? Why does it tell us Esav was hairy? Does it say, describe all the things about him? How tall is he? Does it should say how tall he was? Everything the Torah tells us for a reason. We need to know he was hairy so that we understand later on how Yaakov stole his beracha, number one. But number two, hairy was good. Esav was called Esav because he was asui. He was ready to go. He was made. He was mature. Or as we would say it in these days, he has advanced development. Now you go to a mom with a new baby, and she's going to brag to you how the baby lifts the neck an eighth of an inch higher than it's supposed to at this age. Wow, we're an advanced baby. It's baby Einstein. The baby Einstein. My baby can lift. Did you see the way they lifted? I didn't catch the way the baby lifted the neck. No, look, measure. The baby lifted the neck. Whoa, right? They brag about every single thing. Esav was made mature. He already had hair. He's not a bald baby. He already had hair. Whoa, this is a mature baby. This is an advanced baby. This is a special baby. He was ready to go. Aderet Se'ad was a compliment, not an insult. You understand this? It was a compliment. Why did Yitzhak love his son? His son was special. Esav was special. This kid's going to be huge. This kid is advanced. Imagine you have a baby born with like hair and not wobbly, like strong. Whoa, this is a special kid. So we have to think in an adult way about this. Aderet Se'ad was a compliment. Okay? They called him Esav. Esav was not an insult. Esav was a compliment. They called him ready-made. That was his name, Asui, made. They called him advanced child. Child in the advanced school. This is a compliment. Esav was a star growing up. Not only Yitzhak thought he was great, they all thought he was going to be a superstar one day. He was advanced. Okay? We need to understand this. There's certain things we have to understand before we can tie up all the answers. Makes sense why Yitzhak loved his son? Okay. Kisai Befiv, yes. But he was a special kid. Now, just going to address a few more points and then tie it all together. But there's a very tiny, quick, unrelated to anything lesson that I just love from Rabbi Miller also, so I'm going to throw it in there. It's not related to anything else. Over here, Yaakov is making this soup. Comes Esav from the field, and he says, Esav comes to the field and he's tired. Ayef is tired. Pour me from some of this red stuff. Ki ayef anochi, because I'm tired. Aken karashimo Edom. Therefore, they called him Edom, red. They called him red. Okay. Now, number one, Rabbi Miller says, don't make important life decisions when you're tired. He sold away his entire Olam Haba because he was tired. Yaakov says, sell me the birthright. Okay, fine, I'm tired, I'll make the deal. It's just a very important lesson, and it always reminds me, every time I read that from Rabbi Miller, what's the worst advice someone ever gave you in your life? I know the worst advice I was ever given in my life, no doubt. The worst advice I've ever gotten in my life was before I got married, and then everyone told me, remember, don't ever go to bed mad. It's the worst advice ever. Don't ever go to bed mad. Go to bed mad. You know how many years it took us to learn? Go to bed mad. You're not going to fix anything when you're exhausted. When you have a kid crying in the cradle, you didn't get 2 hours of sleep the night before, and now you're going to hash out some crazy thing about you. Your house, your mother-in-law's house, my house this week. Go to bed. Go to bed mad. Right? Don't make decisions every time. So sometimes, I'm always busy at Baruch Hashem. I do a million things. So I teach the bar mitzvah boys all the time, but I also teach hatanim, grooms, all the time also. And I always tell the grooms, go to bed mad. Don't do the mistake. It took me 5 years to figure this out. Go to bed mad. When you have a disagreement, say, okay, you know what? Let's go to bed. We'll talk about it in the morning. Best thing you can do. But remember, it says, don't make decisions when you're tired. Ayef Anochi, the guy ruined his whole life because he was tired. But there's something else to think about. He should have said I was hungry. He says I'm tired. He should have said I was hungry. Isn't that interesting? Give me some of this food because I'm tired. Tired or hungry? Was he tired or hungry? Or both? What happened right after he eats it? Interesting. I love this part because I read the Torah. I don't know if there's another place in the Torah that it has 5 verbs in a row. 5 verbs in a row. Vayocha, vayesht, vayakom, vayelach, vayibez. In a row. Va. What happened? And he ate and he drank. He got up. He left. He made fun of the thing. That's a lot of work for someone who's very tired. It's a lot of moving around for someone who's very tired, right? If he was tired, it should have said vayocha, vayesht, and he went to sleep. It doesn't say he went to sleep. He ate, he drank, he got up, he skipped down, and he said, bye-bye, I made fun of the whole thing. That was the best deal I ever got in my life. I don't care about it. He had lots of energy. He wasn't tired. That was psychological. You think you're tired. You're not tired. You're hungry. Get your emotions straight. Esav was a passionate person at this point. He was an impulsive person. He acted on impulse and passion. And that was his downfall. Why do they call him Edom? Because he said, give me the red stuff. He was all about the passion. It became his nickname. Now, I told you, Esav was a complimentary name. Edom was not a complimentary name. Edom was an insult. They called the guy red. They literally imagine they called the guy red. We have to translate into English sometimes to appreciate it. A guy wants the green stuff, green, give me the green. So, all right, from now on, your name is green. Now, in high school, you can see kids doing this. But this is like, he literally went around, people are like, hey, green, what's up, green? All right, because you act out of impulse. They called him red. R-E-D, that's your new name, red. But red connotes passion. Why is red called Edom? Because it comes from the word dam, blood. Red is called Edom because it's dam, is blood is red, right? Blood, passion, hot passion, impulse. That's who he became Esav. And that became his nickname. That was not a good thing. So you see the progression? Esav started out on the good track. And he chose to go with his impulses and passion, and he decided, and he went onto the bad track because of this event. Now, a couple of other pointers before we go back to the other part that I wanted to talk about. Rabbi Bridowitz says a couple of other ideas, also not related, but just good. Number one, don't blame yourself if you have a kid that's not doing great. You have a kid that's off the derech. Yitzhak and Rivka had Esav. There's a classic question in psychology, nature or nurture? Classic, nature versus nurture. What determines a person's outcome, right? And actually, psychologists, they have done studies with twins. I have a psychology degree, which I do nothing with. They've done studies with twins. How many twins they've ruined? Honestly, psychologists, scientists, not now, but they ruin people's lives. These kids, a lot of kids committed suicide because of the studies that they made these people go through, right? Especially when it comes to gender. So Google it yourself after the class. They took twins, they made one into a girl, they made the boy into a girl, the boy into suicide. These scientists, just for scientific research, they ruin people's lives. But they've done research on twins. Why? Because twins are as close as it gets. It's the best study. Nature or nurture? What determines who you are? How you're born or your setting? Esav and Yakov at the same setting. They grew up in the same house, right? Their nature was different. Right? Their nurture was the same. So don't beat yourself up. This is also a lesson took me many years to learn as a father. Your kids are different. All your kids are different. They're not going to come out robots. I wish I learned this earlier, honestly. My first son has to pay the price for the lesson, the guinea pig, but every kid is different. And so therefore, you take it easy. One kid's going to be Esav, hopefully Yaakov. One kid may have Esav tendencies and try to stop them from becoming Esav. But if they do become Esav, don't beat yourself up. What are you supposed to do about it? Yitzhak had Esav. But there's another lesson. Abraham died the day that Esav chose to go down the bad path and buy that soup, right? So the classic commentary is, the Midrash says, Abraham was taken from this world right before Esav turned bad. Hashem was kind to Abraham. So Abraham is the jiddo, the grandpa. And Hashem says, I don't want you to see your son make the bad choices. Until 15 years old, he's okay. I'm going to take you from this world. I'm going to take you from this world the day he decides to make the bad choice, so you don't have to experience it. That's what they say. But Rabbi Brito says, we're reading the Midrash wrong. It's not that Abraham was taken from this world, happens to be on the day when Esav went bad. It's the opposite. Esav became bad on the day his grandpa died. Sometimes the parents and the kids don't jive. And sometimes the only thing that assists a grandkid from holding on to the right path is the grandma or the grandpa. Abraham was the one keeping Esav in line. His father was Dean. His father he loved. His mother, doesn't look like he was very close to his mother. His grandpa was his source of livelihood. His grandpa kept him on the straight and narrow. When his grandpa died, he went off. Right? You read the Midrash the opposite way. Not that it's a coincidence Hashem took Abraham. By the way, this happens to be the same day Esav turned bad. It was a kindness to Abraham. No. Hashem took Abraham and look what happened to his grandkids. Sometimes grandparents are the only link that the kid has. It doesn't work sometimes with the parents. Now, if you're a grandparent, you got to pick up your game. Sometimes your grandkids need you. They need you. And it doesn't work with their parents, and you're the only reason you could be their Abraham. You could be keeping Esav in line. Okay, back to the story. Okay, great. Let's get back to what we want to talk about here. The question we had. Why is it a consolation that I have in my stomach two powers that are going to be at each other? Why does that make me feel better? Yeah.
Sorry, before you embark on this answer here.
Yeah.
You said that Esav remarked that he's tired. What you just explained, maybe he didn't even realize it, but when he took the soup and Abraham died, tired was, I'm going down.
Could be. And also the subconscious emotions and denial,
Right.
sometimes that we don't even know. We could be saying, like in other words, we could be saying, I feel this way, but it's really a whole nother thing in your head. You just don't know it. Right? So that's, yes, it could all be true. It could be tired. It could be emotionally tired. It could be a bunch of different things. But if it was physically tired, why didn't he go to sleep?
Right, like you explained.
Right. It doesn't make sense. It could be. It could be. I get what you're saying. It could be. It's interesting, right? At the very least, it's interesting. Think about those 5 verbs in a row. It's so powerful. Vayakom, vayocha, vayesh, vayakom, vayecha, vayibes. He's moving, this guy. This guy's moving. For a tired guy, I wish I can do that when I'm not tired. Okay. Back to the question we had. Why does a negative Kaf feel better? She's having crazy pains in her stomach. Why does it make her feel better? Okay. This is going to be interesting. Sorry for the distraction over here. Yari, you want to ask them if they don't mind waiting 10 minutes? You want to ask them if they mind waiting maybe 10 minutes? We'll be done in 10 minutes? Okay. We're going to keep going. We have people watching live also on YouTube, so I don't want to stop. Okay. Okay, let's go on. Again, why is it a nehama? And also, according to Rashi, everybody with me? I'm sorry for the distraction here. I tried to stop it actually before, but didn't get my text. The question is, according to Rashi, what is Rashi adding here? With me, everybody? Sorry, back to what we're talking about. What is Rashi helping here? Rashi says these two guys were Rebbe Yehuda and Anotninus. Oh, thank you, Rashi. That makes me feel a lot better, right? Okay. The third question I want to ask, which I already kind of explained to you, is the classic question: is was Esav bad in the stomach? You know, the kids come home and say Esav was a Rasha in the stomach. Was Esav a Rasha in the stomach? I think we know the answer by now. You have to look at this on a more mature level, right? Esav was most likely not a Rasha in the stomach. Nobody's a Rasha in the stomach, really. It's a deep question, and if I have time after, I'll address it. But I think you're going to get the idea based on where we go with this. To answer this, there's a question I asked a long time ago. I don't even know if we have this class, maybe a different venue. Why do we have 3 fathers and 4 mothers. When did I do this? A long time ago, right? Why do we have 3 forefathers and 4 mothers? It's not even. Why would Hashem design a world like this? Shouldn't everyone be even, right? Esav, yeah. And the answer is, Esav was supposed to be a forefather also. We were supposed to have 4 mothers, and we were supposed to have 4 fathers. And who was the 4th father? Esav. Esav was not a Rasha in the belly. Esav had the potential to use his traits for amazing things. We know that Yaakov, he had children, 12 tribes. 2 of the tribes were Yisachar and Zevulun. What is the classic Yisachar Zevulun? Yisachar is the one learning Torah all day long and teaching, and Zevulun is the worker. The worker is supporting the people who are learning. The original plan was for Esav to be the Zevulun to Yaakov. Yaakov would be Yisachar, Esav would be Zevulun. They were twins in the stomach because they were supposed to be partners. Yaakov was supposed to be Yoshev Ohalim, and Esav was supposed to be out there supporting Yaakov. Esav was not a Rasha in the stomach. Esav was supposed to be a partner in the Jewish nation. Sfat Emet quotes a midrash that says we had 12 tribes. It was supposed to be 6 tribes from Yaakov and 6 tribes from Esav. Esav had a role here. What happens is Esav chose badly. When he was 15 years old and he did this and he sold his birthright, he came in saying, feed me because I'm exhausted, and he acted on impulse, and then he agreed to the sale. That's all we had to see. Yaakov said, my partner is not going to be good for me. Sometimes you have partners in a business, the partner is not going to work out. You're pulling your weight much more than the partner's pulling his weight. And when he made fun of the sale, that was the last straw. Not only did you make a bad decision, you're making fun of this. You're making fun of the business we're in, even, right? You're out. I got to buy you out. I got to buy my partner out. If you have a business with a partner, you're supposed to be in sales, they're supposed to be in accounting, whatever, customer service. You're doing your job and they're not doing their job. And when you want to talk about it, they say, here, take my share. I don't care. Do what I'm doing. You want to do what I'm doing? Do it. You got to buy that partner out. It's time for that partner to go. And so Yaakov says, I'm going to buy you out. I'm going to do this all by myself. You're making fun of the business even? You're making fun of this? What are we doing? You're not cut out. You were cut out for the job. We were supposed to be in this together. You're not pulling your weight. You're out. I'm doing your job also. Now Yaakov has to do the Yaakov part, and Yaakov has to do the Esav part. Leah, next week's parasha. Leah is crying all day long. Why is she crying, the Midrash says? Because everyone was saying, twins, 2 kids from the Rivka, 2 kids from Lavan, the oldest to the oldest, the youngest to the youngest, Leah to Esav, Rachel to Yaakov. Leah was supposed to be married to Esav. It's not just a old wives' tale. Leah was really supposed to be married to Esav. And she cried when she saw he decided to go off the path. And she said, what's going to be with me? Who's going to be with me? I'm still going to be with him. Look what he did. So what happens? Not only does Yaakov have to take over Esav, and because of this we understand why he had to do the trick and take the blessing. He had to take over Esav's job in the company. He also had to take his wife. Because now you're not fit for Leah anymore. Esav was also, remember what we said, Abraham was Hesed, Sarah was Din. They gave birth to Yitzhak. Yitzhak was Din, strict. His wife Rivka was Hesed, the water with the camels. What about their kids? Yaakov was Hesed, he was born, like his mom. His mom loved him. Coincidence his mom loved him? They acted the same. Yitzhak loved Esav because he was strong, Gevurah. When Esav failed to do his job, Yaakov said, I got to take over your job. So my Hesed, and I got to take over your Din. I got to try to act like you. And it created this new trait called Tiferet, Rahamim, the blend. The blend was created because Esav failed to do his job. And now I got to take my wife, and I got to take your wife. And I got to do this all myself. And now I have to have kids, Yisachar and Zevulun, that we have our own system inside of my family of support. It was supposed to be you supporting me. Now I have to pass it on to my kids. Esav made fun of the birthright. Bechorah should be spelled Bet, Chaf, Vav, Resh, He. Bechorah. It's not spelled that way. It's spelled Bet, Chaf, Resh, He. It's missing a Vav. You know, in the Torah, there's no Nikudot. If you take away the Nikudot, I can easily read this. Vayibez Esav et Bechira. Who's the Bechira? Lavan, next week's Parashah, Lavan says, the Bechira is Leah, the older one. Bechira means the older daughter. He made fun of the birthright. You lost the Bechira. You lost Leah. You lost Leah. Now Leah's got to go to your brother. And now he's got to do the whole thing all by himself. This is the pivotal moment in history when Esav decided not to be a member of this nation. He had a shot. He wasn't born to be Esav. He wasn't born to be... Esav was a complimentary name. He was born to be Esav. He wasn't born to be Edom. He changed himself from Esav to Edom. That's why he had two names, Seir. Now we know why Yaakov had to make the trick. Because the plan all along was for Esav to get the blessing of wealth. When he went into his father and stole the blessing, which blessings did his father give him? Blessings for wealth and prosperity. That should have gone to Esav. Yitzhak didn't make a mistake. Yitzhak wasn't dumb. He didn't make a mistake. The blessing of wealth and prosperity should go to Esav. He's supposed to support Yaakov. But he didn't understand that Esav blew it. And he now became Edom. And so Yaakov has to say, I got to become Esav. I got to dress like Esav. And I got to do Hakol Kol Yaakov. I'm still Yaakov. My hands have to be Esav. I got to do two guys' jobs. And that's why I need the blessing for prosperity and money and success. Because he's not going to do a good job with it. If you give him the money, he's not going to support me. It's all making sense if you think about it this way. The whole story makes much more sense. Why? Another reason why. So why did the trick have to happen? Why do you have to make a trick and steal it? Isn't that a little distasteful? Continuing down this path, now that Esav forfeited his job, Yaakov has to marry Rachel and Leah. If he would have gotten married a normal way, he probably would have done, everything I'm saying is not my own. It's from Victor Miller mostly. If they would have gotten married the normal way, they probably would have done the same thing his father did. How did Yitzhak get married? They sent someone to fetch a wife. They probably would have sent someone to fetch who? Rachel. Not two wives. Why would they send someone to fetch two wives? Hashem says, you got to take both. So now I need you out of this house. How do I make him leave the house? Make it that his brother is so mad that if he sticks around, he's going to kill him. I need his brother to be mad at him. Not just mad, furious. Definitely angry, so that he's going to kill him. We have no choice but to send him out of the house. Why? So he can go there and marry both of them. That would never happen unless Esav was so angry. We needed Esav to get angry in order for Yaakov to marry his wife, both wives. If this didn't happen, he would have only married Rachel. If this didn't happen, we would be missing 50% of the link. Isn't it making more sense now, the whole story? It's all planned. All planned. Now, if you look at the berachot, he goes in to steal the berachot. He puts on Esav's sleeves. He puts on Esav's on the neck. He puts on the Gedaya Ezin. He makes believe he's Esav. Like I said, Hakol Kol Yaakov, the Hayadayim de Esav was a plan by Yaakov. I have to be both of these guys now. I got to do the sales, and I got to do the customer service. I got to do both. And so I'm putting on Esav's physical hands. I got to do the hands. If my hands were not supposed to get dirty. He was supposed to do the dirty work for me, not dirty work. He was supposed to support me. Now I got to do his job. Yadayim de Esav is a new identity that Yaakov has to embrace. Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says, what made Yitzhak say, hey, wait a second, Hakol Kol Yaakov? Doesn't sound like Esav. Why? Because Yaakov used the word God, right? What made Yitzhak suspicious, right? Yaakov goes in there and he says, "Hey, Dad, here's the food. Eat and bless me. I'm Esav." His father says, "You feel like Esav, but you don't sound like Esav. Hakol kol Yaakov. The voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the Yadayim is Esav. It's so odd. It's so weird." But he blessed them anyway. What was the giveaway? The giveaway was he used Hashem's name. He says, "How'd you get here so quick with the food, my son?" He says, "God helped me to find it quickly." God? That's not the way Esav talks, right? Rabbi Hirsch says, "Yaakov, if you want to be a trickster, that's a really easy giveaway. I mean, you're really bad at this, right?" He says, "No, Yaakov is doing it on purpose. He wanted to be discovered. He wanted to show his father, look, Dad, I can be down here playing the game. I can do Esav's job. I can have the voice of Yaakov, and I can also have the hands of Esav. I want you to know that, Dad. Esav, my brother, is not going to pull his weight. I need you to know I can do both jobs. I want you to know that I'm the voice of Yaakov in the hands of Esav, because I need that blessing, because that's going to be my job for the next 4,000 years." He wanted to be caught. He wanted Yitzhak to know this. If he didn't want him to know it, I'm sure he could have done a better job hiding it. Yitzhak agrees. Yitzhak blesses him first with Esav's blessing for money and prosperity. And then Esav comes in and he gets all angry and he says, "What happened? Your brother stole the right." Rivka comes back with another plan. See the way our foremothers work. Rivka comes back and says, "Now you got to go to my brother's house. I'm going to talk to Dad. Don't worry. I'll talk to Dad." She talks to the husband. Bam! Within 1 second. "By the way, son, got to go to your mom's house." Wow, great idea, right? It's all the mother. It's all the wife. Before he goes, his father gives him another blessing. There are 2 blessings in this pirasha. The first blessing he stole was the blessing for prosperity in this physical world. But before he left, his father says to him, "V'yiten lecha ha'elohim," where is it? No, that's not that one. Ve'el shaddai, here. "V'yiten lecha et birkat Avraham." Hashem should give you the blessing of Avraham. Lecha u'zaracha itach, to you and your seed. What is the second blessing for? This is the true blessing of we call Judaism, of the covenant, of the treaty. Yitzhak agreed 100% wholeheartedly, not being tricked after the whole shtick was over. Yitzhak agreed and blessed him and said, "You are the one, not your brother." It says straight out. He knew what happened. The whole game was over. He says afterwards, Hashem should bless you and your seed with the blessings of Abraham, of Grandpa. You are the one. The trick is over. This is open. Rambam says it straight out. Rambam says the treaty of Avraham was passed down to Yitzhak. It says, "Ki bi Yitzhak yikareh lecha zara." Hashem told Avraham, with Yitzhak you're going to have the seed. The seed is the treaty, not Ishmael. And when did Yaakov get chosen? This pasuk Rambam says, "V'yitin lecha b'kat Avraham." Brisker Rav says, Rambam means Esav didn't lose his shot at the job until this very moment. I think they were 63 years old. 63 years old, Esav still had a shot to turn his game around and to join the nation. But afterwards, after the whole trick was discovered and Yaakov is about to go out to the land, it's over. Esav is officially Edom. He's out. Not in the belly, he was already Edom. No, in the belly, he was Esav. He had a chance to do the good job. 63 years old, Yaakov gets chosen. So now, a bunch of the questions are answered, besides for one. What was the constellation about the 2 nations in the belly? And what is so special about Rebbe Yehuda Nasi and Anotninus Rashi? And for that, I'm going to try to do it fast because we're almost out of time. For that, I'm going to read you a quick Gemara inside. Now, I'm going to read the Aramaic quickly because we're short on time and I want to be sensitive to those who have to go, but I'll explain it outside. Who is Rebbe Yehuda Nasi? Who is Rebbe and who is Anotninus? She says, Rebbe and Anotninus, who are these guys? So they were friends. Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. Rebbe is called Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. He was the leader of the Jewish people. 70 or 80 years after the destruction of the second temple, Yehuda Nasi decided to write down the oral Torah. So remember, we've done this once before, that Hashem gave us the written Torah. And that's all they had was the Bible. All we had was the Bible. That's it. No Gemara, all these books you see, no. One book. So you go to a shul, what's on the bookshelf? One book. The Bible. That's it. No other books on the table. Okay. They had this whole oral part, which was handed down orally from father to son and mother to daughter and Rebbe to student. And it became the Mishnayot, the Halakha, everything what to do. And then eventually, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi saw everyone is getting mixed up in the laws. Everyone is forgetting what their father told them. The nation is dwindling. The temple has been destroyed. The Roman government was starting to choke us. The Roman government was really, really starting to persecute us and hurt us. They even made laws that we can have Brit Milah and all things like that. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, it's going to be gone. If the oral tradition is forgotten, you can say goodbye to Judaism. Without oral Torah, we are no better lehavdil than Christians. What's the difference? We need the oral Torah. 99.9% of the Torah we have was oral. The written Torah was a document. It was like a map with no instruction on how to discover the treasure. We need all these books from the rabbis to discover how to open up and see the way to discover the treasure. I've done this before a bunch of times with this class. The oral Torah, that's why Lag BaOmer. Why do we make such a big deal about Lag BaOmer, about the students of Rabbi Akiva dying, 24,000 students? So what? We had a bunch of plagues. I mean, I feel bad, but that's like a whole thing. It's a national mourning. Right? In the Omer, we don't do all sorts of things because 24,000 students died. Because at that time there was no written, or the oral Torah was not written. It was only oral. And everyone who knew it died. There was one person left on earth who still remembered the words. If Rabbi Akiva were to drop dead before he got new students, you can say goodbye to Gemara, no such thing as Shulchan Aruch, no such thing as anything. It was a national tragedy. And when he found 5 more students of Rabbi Akiva to hand over their oral tradition, he kept it alive. The Torah would have been gone. All the books in the library would not have ever been written. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he saw the destruction of the temple happened, not when he was alive, before he was born. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was actually born on the same day Rabbi Akiva died. Hashem took Rabbi Akiva from the world, and he put down Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He was the link. Rebbe, he was we call him the author of the Mishnah, so it's not really the right word to use. It was more like the editor. He didn't write the Mishnayot. I mean, he may have wrote them in ink, but they were not his words. They were a collection of all the words from all the great rabbis of the past, Hillel and Shammai. So what happened with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi? He saw that it was going to be a disaster, and people were forgetting everything. It was the end of Judaism as we know it. He said, how do I save Judaism? I have to do something drastic. I have to do something that's not allowed. It's illegal in Jewish law. I have to write down the oral Torah. You got to write down the oral Torah? It hasn't been written for thousands of years. You're not allowed to write down the oral Torah. It was forbidden. It was oral for a reason. He said, Et la'asot la'Hashem hefela toratecha. There are certain times, what's the phrase? Drastic times call for drastic measures. I have to break this law we have, and I have to write it down, or you can say goodbye to Judaism. It was over. And so what did he do? He collected all the rabbis, and he told all the rabbis, come to my town, come to my place where I live. Let's all gather together, and we're going to hash out all the things you know. And everything you know, say it, and I'm going to write it down. Everyone, you, line up. Everything you know, just say it all by heart. These do it all by heart. And these say, okay, Hillel Omer this, Shammai says this. Hold on, let me write that down. He wrote every single thing down. In order to do this, he had to import all the rabbis from all over. They were all scattered around, but you can have people, there are rabbis who knew everything by heart. And sometimes, many times you'll find in the Gemara, forgive me if we go a little late. Is it okay if we go a couple minutes late? Sometimes you'll find in the Gemara, he'll say, this rabbi is the master at Taharot. Oh, this rabbi, he knew all the Mishnayot about Nida. That was his thing. This rabbi knew all Shabbat. Yes, rabbis who specialized, this was all by heart. I don't even know my mother-in-law's phone number by heart. They knew everything by heart. I don't. But I love you anyway. This is all by heart. We have to write this stuff down, so I have to import. Who's the best guy? You can picture the scene. Who's the best guy for Nizikim Mishnayot? It's Rabbi Abba. Where is he? He lives 100 miles away. Bring him in here now. Fly him in. Right? Import him in now. We need everyone now because the window is closing. Why is the window closing? Because the Romans were choking us. The Romans were choking us and we were running out of time. If I don't get this thing written down, it's over. Thankfully for the Yehuda Nasi, he had a friend in a very high place. Who is the friend in the very high place? Anotninus, the person that she just told us about. Who is Anotninus? So it's a question who he was. Anotninus was the name. We have general names like President, Pharaoh, Avimelech, Caesar. These are all general names. The pronouns, I don't know what the name. They're not a proper name, right? Close the door. So Anotninus was the leader of the Roman Empire. The question is, which Anotninus was it? So some people say it was, if you have your phone, you want to Google, Anotninus Pius, P-I-U-S. Some people say it was his adopted son, Marcus Aurelius. Most people I've seen said it's Marcus Aurelius. So we're going to go with Marcus Aurelius. This is a real person. You're welcome to Google the person. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. Okay. Now let's understand why it was such a comfort for Rivka, according to that the Shem told him, don't worry, in your belly is Anotninus, Marcus Aurelius, and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. What happened with them? I'll tell you outside most of it. The Gemara says, Anotninus, Marcus Aurelius, he was on his conquest. The Romans were conquering everything. And as he passed through the Middle East, he came across the hot springs of Tiberia, the hot springs. And he said, wow, they're rejuvenating. They're healthy. They make me feel, they're invigorating. He got to like the place. Living near there in Sipori was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He met the rabbi and he fell in love with the rabbi. They were best friends. So what happened? He told his servants to dig a tunnel under his house. It wasn't his palace. It was like a vacation home in Tiberia. And they dug a tunnel from his house into the Yehuda Nasi's house, from his basement into the Yehuda Nasi's basement. And he had to keep this top secret. If the government found out, even though he was the leader, if the government officials found out that he was best friends with the rabbi, that would be the end of him. They'd kill him. They'd overthrow him. He kept it top secret. And every single night, he would go underground, under the tunnel, and visit Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and learn in his house with him together. He became his student and his best friend. This happened for many, many years. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he was allowed to gather the rabbis in a very terrible time only because he had a friend in Marcus Aurelius. If not for Marcus Aurelius, being friends with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he would never be allowed, bless you, to gather all the rabbis and write the Mishna. That was a time when you're not allowed to do anything. He knew that he had a friend in a very high place, and he had urgency, because the second his friend, Marcus Aurelius, loses the throne, it's over. And it's true, it was over. Now, who was Marcus Aurelius? There is a backstory. I apologize for being late. You can leave if you want. I won't be insulted. Who was Marcus Aurelius? There was a decree that you cannot have a brit milah, no circumcision. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's father and mother had him and gave him a brit milah after 8 days. Someone ratted on them, bless you. Someone ratted on them out to the government, snitched and told the government that his father, who was a very prominent rabbi, circumcised Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Yehuda, the kid Yehuda. He was summoned to the palace to appear and with the baby, and if the baby has no foreskin, they're going to be summoned to death. On their way out, they didn't know what to do. There was a Roman family nearby that the mother was close to. The two mothers, the two housewives were friends. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's mom and some Roman woman. And she said, I heard what happened. They're going to kill you. I had a son the same day you did. Let's switch babies. You give me little Yehuda. I'll give you my baby. You take my baby to the palace. They're going to take the diaper off. There's not going to be a circumcision. There's going to be a foreskin. They're going to let you go. And that's exactly what happened. Who was this mother? And who was the baby? The mother was the mother of Marcus Aurelius. And the baby was Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. Now, it's important to know that at that time, the Romans, you can also Google any of this, all Googleable. The Roman emperors, the Caesars, they didn't hand over always their monarchy to their biological children. They used to adopt children. Marcus Aurelius was adopted. He was adopted by the other Antonius, and he became the emperor. At the time when he was a baby, he wasn't royalty. He was just a regular Roman boy. He became the emperor. Because of that, his mother saved Rabbi Yehuda's life, and they became friends later on, and they became best friends later on. And actually, he secretly, while he was emperor, he secretly converted to Judaism and got his own Brit Milah later on in his life without anyone knowing. It was a secret to his people. This is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and this is Marcus Aurelius. 5 more minutes. I'm going to tell you something interesting. Sorry, you can go if you want. I'm going to read you this interesting Gemara that if you didn't know this whole backstory, you may not appreciate. But now with this backstory, tell me if this Gemara means something to you. Kol yoma, every day, hava mishamish l'Rebbe. Marcus Aurelius, I'm going to call him, would serve Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. He had a lot of respect for him. He was his Torah teacher. Ma'achile, he would feed him. Mashkile, he would give him to drink. Ki hava ba'i Rebbe l'misat lefuria. I'm going to give him what that's up, by the way. Rebbe wanted to take a nap, and he said, I'm tired, I want to go take a nap. Hava gahin kameh puria. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, would bend down on the ground in front of the bed. And Amaleh sak ilavai lefuriach. He said, climb on my back to go into your bed. The emperor. I'm not allowed to step on your back. You're a king. Marcus Aurelius says, I wish I can be the mattress under you in Olam Haba, in the next world. This is a story of a descendant of Esav choosing the right way. This is a story of the partnership working. Marcus Aurelius tells Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, tell me, Rebbe, am I going to get Olam Haba? Me, a non-Jew, before he converted. Am I going to get Olam Haba? Amale'in. He said, yes, of course you're going to go Olam Haba. Amale, yeah, but you taught me a pasuk. It says, Lo yesari lebet Esav. No one from Esav will be saved when Mashiach comes. He says, only be'oseh ma'aseh Esav. Only if you act like Esav. But if you don't act like Esav, you get Olam Haba. Now, if you just read this Gemara without knowing all that I just told you, it wouldn't mean much. But what if I told you that Hidan says Marcus Aurelius was a reincarnation of Esav, and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was a reincarnation of Yakov? They came back into the world, and this time it worked out well. And this time he chose wisely. And this time, because of Esav, we have this very Gemara that I'm reading. If not for Marcus Aurelius making the right choice, we would have no Mishna. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi would never get permission to collect all the rabbis. Never. It would all have been forgotten. There would be no Torah in Judaism, if not for Marcus Aurelius, if not for Esav's great-grandkid. And what was he concerned about? Will I get Olam Haba? In our Pirashah, Vayibez at the Bechorah, he made fun of Olam Haba. Not this time. Not this time. Now I care about Olam Haba. One more Gemara if I can. One more Gemara. Gemara Sanhedrin. It says over here. It's amazing. You need to put the dots together to appreciate this. You can have a dot and a dot. If you don't dot them together, it's just two separate dots. Listen to this Gemara. Literally, right? Listen to this Gemara Sanhedrin. Amar le Anotninus the Rebbe. Anotninus asks Rebbe. By the way, everything's Googleable, including the fact that Marcus Aurelius was a very great philosopher. No coincidence. He learned with Yehuda Nasi. He actually has books that they sell. I think on Amazon you can buy a book written by or transcribed from Marcus Aurelius, books on philosophy. Amar le Anotninus the Rebbe. He said to him, Gemara Sanhedrin says, Neshama me'ematay nitna be'adam. When does the soul enter a baby? Mishat pekida or mishat tzira, from conception or from when the baby is formed? What does he care about conception, baby is formed? What does he care about that? Amale mishat tzira. Rabbi Yehuda he says the neshama enters when the baby is formed, which is later on, not by conception. Later on, when the baby starts getting a formation, a physical formation, Hashem puts the neshama in. He says, no way. No way. Marcus Antoninus says, no way, Rebbe. The neshama comes in at conception. And what does Rebbe say? Amar Rebbe, dabar ze lamedeni Anotninus. I have officially learned something new, and I agree. He's right. The neshama comes in at conception. Why does Marcus Aurelius care about when the neshama comes in? Is it no coincidence that in our Pirasha, inside the belly they're fighting, and everyone's saying Esau was destined to be bad? Marcus Aurelius is saying, when I was in my past incarnation, and I was in the belly, was I bad in the belly? Did I have a neshama yet? And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you didn't have a neshama. He says, yes, I did. I had a neshama from conception. Rabbi Yehuda says, you were right. You're right. You did. He says further, he says further, when does the evil inclination come into a baby? When does the evil come into the baby? From formation, or from when they leave the belly? When does the Yetzer Hara enter the baby? Rabbi Yehuda says the Yetzer Hara is in there earlier. It's when the baby is formed. In the belly there's the Yetzer Hara. No way. Marcus Aurelius says, no way. If so, if the Yetzer Hara is in the belly, that baby would kick and tear up his mother and leave the belly. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Would kick and leave the belly. Rabbi Yehuda says, Anotninus, you're right again. You are right again. The Yetzer Hara, the evil, comes when the baby leaves the belly, which means Marcus Aurelius was saying, when I was in the belly, don't call me evil. I wasn't evil yet until I left. Now, the Mahashah says, I can go on for like another hour. I don't know what to do. What should I do? Should I close it up? You can leave. Whoever wants to stay, stay. This is just endless. You can leave, Mom. You also can leave. I don't mind. Okay. You two people can leave too. The Gemara says, the Maharsha asks a question. The Maharsha says, what do you mean? What do you mean the Yetzer Hara doesn't come until after the baby leaves? We have a very famous Gemara. Listen to this one if you don't know this. On Yom Kippur, if a pregnant woman wants something, she has to have it. If a pregnant woman feels, they need pickles and ice cream and all these crazy things, but if they feel they need something and they're going to go crazy if they don't have it, it could be life-threatening. They need to have it. A mom knows what she needs. Sometimes there's a question, even if it's not kosher, maybe we'll break the laws of kosher for that. That's how dangerous it is. Gemara says as follows. What if a pregnant woman comes on Yom Kippur and says, I must eat food. I need to eat. Do we listen to her on Yom Kippur? So the Gemara says, we would listen to her, but try one thing first. Gemara Yoma says, whisper into her ear and say, today is Yom Kippur. And see if she still wants the food. Why do we do that? Because the baby's listening. You're not whispering to the mother. You're whispering to the baby. The baby's hungry. So you tell the baby, today's Yom Kippur. Do you still want food? That's supposed to solve the problem. Gemara says one time they tried it, and the mom says, I still need to eat food. And the rabbi said, that's a bad baby in there. That's a bad baby in there. So the Maharsha asks, you just told me the Yetzer Hara doesn't come until you leave. And now, how could it be a bad baby? He also asked a question from our Pirasha. Esau was kicking in the belly. So I'm going to tell you something crazy. I'm going to tell you something crazy. The Gemara Shabbat says, where do I stop exactly? It's 10:30. The Gemara Shabbat says, keep going. Gemara Shabbat says, you want to go? Okay, see you later. Gemara Shabbat says, the Malachim told Hashem, before he gave the Torah to the Jewish people, Hashem, you had a Torah for 1,000 generations. You held this Torah for 1,000 generations, and now you're giving it to these guys? And the question the Gemara says is, has it been 1,000 generations? How many generations from creation until Moshe Rabbeinu? Generations from creation to Moshe, 26 generations from creation to Moshe. Gemara says the angel said to Hashem, you had this Torah for 1,000 generations. No, I didn't have for 1,000 generations. I had it for 26 generations, 10 till Noach, 16 from Noach to Moshe. Right? Gemara says Hashem designed the world initially to have 1,000 generations first before the Torah was given. But he said the world can never survive that long waiting for the Torah. So I'm going to cut 974 generations off of the beginning of creation. I'm going to cut that out of the plan. What did he do with these generations? It's going to sound crazy. The Rebbe Kiva Eger says, Yom Shabbat, 88b. Rebbe Kiva Eger says, and the Ben Ish Chai also says this, he took some of the people from each of those 974 generations and he planted them into our generations as we know it. He just cut 974 generations of creation, but I'm going to take a select few people, and what I'm going to do with these people, I'm going to supercharge these people. They're going to be supercharged people with passion and emotion and character like you never saw, and they're going to be in each generation to make up for all the time they lost. And Ben Ish Chai says, maybe Esav was one of these guys. And he says, anytime you have someone, look at Donald Trump, for example. When does he sleep? Remember, he was president. When did he use it? Never stopped. Whether you love him or hate him, it doesn't matter. You have to admire, especially compared to the president now. You have to admire the guy's energy. He doesn't stop. The guy was a truck, right? So the Ben Ish Chai says, when you see people in your world that are just supercharged, they could be from the 974 generations before creation. We're going to do 2 minutes and we're done here. We're done. I'm sorry. So Anotninus cares about Olam Haba. Anotninus cares about when the Yetzer Hara comes in because he's the tikkun for Esav. And this is an example of when it goes, so why does it make Rivka feel better? Why does Rivka say, what is going on here? Don't worry, you got Rebbe and Anotninus in there. Oh, thank you. I'm good to go. Why? It's going to work one day. It's going to work out well one day. There's going to be a pair of friends, Rebbe and Anotninus, who are going to save your Judaism as we know it because they're going to get along. It's going to be beautiful one day. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel good. And when Mashiach comes, we're going to continue. Hopefully next week we'll talk about this, how Esav is going to continue to be our friend. One last part. The Biyudah Nasi, we said, was the reincarnation of Yaakov. Look at the Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot, chapter 2. It says, I thought I had one here. I don't. It says, the Biyudah says, what is the derech yeshara? What is the path a person should choose? A perech that is tiferet leoseha. Tiferet. He says you should choose tiferet. Interesting. I'm Yaakov, who is the character of tiferet. What is the Biyudah's Mishnah? All the Shas that he created with all the people. How does it start? What is the very first Mishnah in Shas? Berachot. What is the first Mishnah in Berachot? When do we start reading Shema in the evening time? That's how Shas starts. That's how the Biyudah. He could have arranged this any way he wanted to. He started with this. Why did he start with this? Hida says he was Yaakov Avinu. He was Yaakov Avinu. Ben Ish Chai also says this. They combine. Yaakov Avinu, Shema Yisrael, was what was said to Yaakov. When Yaakov was on his deathbed, he said to my children, are you all good? They said, Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel. Yaakov's name was Israel. Listen, Israel. Hashem Echad. We're all one. That was very precious to Yaakov. He heard his children say that in unison. And so the Biyudah Nasi felt the spark of Yaakov in him, and he said, I'm going to start with Shema. That's what feels good to me. But why nighttime? We read Shema in the morning and in the night. Why start with the nighttime? Because Yaakov made Arbit. Ben Ish Chai and the Hida piggyback on this together. Yaakov made Arbit, and so the Biyudah, who was a nitzotz, who was a reincarnation of Yaakov, felt a closeness to Yaakov Avinu, and that's why I'm starting with Arbit and with Shema. Let's wrap it up. Let us wrap it up. Takeaways for today, and then we're done. Wow. Okay, number one. Let's do the easy, funny one first. Don't make decisions when you're tired. Okay? Go to sleep and do it in the morning. Don't make a mistake that is out. Number two, the power of the grandparent. Remember this one? It's very important. The power of the grandparent. Sometimes the kid won't mesh with the parent, but they'll mesh with the grandparent. You can keep your kid alive. Number three, don't beat yourself up if you have a kid that's not acting like Yaakov. Even Yitzhak and Rivka had a Esav. Number four, teammates. They were supposed to be teammates. Now we have to do both. Because of Esav's choice, we're living Yaakov's life. Every one of us has to do both. We have to do the studying and we have to go to work. And that's in all of us. It's important to know that both of these jobs are on us, not only one of the jobs. Another one. Hasidei Amot HaOlam, Goyim. Do they get Olam Haba if they're good? Absolutely, they get Olam Haba, right? Anotninus got it. And let's stop there. That's enough. I have more, but we'll save it for another time. Have a great Sunday. I'm so sorry for being late. How long was today? It was very long. Take care.
Thank you so much.